No, you're not watching Minecon live footage. This is the new cave generation that has just been added to the game. And yes, it extends all the way down into the negatives. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. I'm the Last Wanderer, and today we're looking at Snapshot 21w06a. And this snapshot is a big one. Not only are caves bigger than before, but the world itself is also bigger. This snapshot completely changes the future of Minecraft. First, let's take a look at the new cave generation. And these new caves can get absolutely enormous. These new types of caves are called noise caves, likely because they generate from pearl noise. Now this type in particular is called cheese because of all the holes that generate in it. One notable thing you'll know about these cheese caves is that they generate these huge pillars here, pretty similar to the ones shown in Minecon Live. The other new type of cave we got is called spaghetti, because it can twist and turn and meander for insanely long distances. Like, look at the drop we have here, and the cave itself is still going. It will continue going for a very long distance. The biggest feature, though by far, of this new snapshot is that the world height has been once again increased to 320 blocks and all the way down to negative 64 blocks. This world height increase is so massive that I actually had to turn my render distance up just to see the ocean. My render distance is currently at 18 chunks, and I can barely see the ocean below. It's also quite laggy for my computer. And then let's not forget that below the ocean there's an additional set of 64 blocks in Y level to negative 64. If I jump off this pillar, it's going to take me quite a while to reach the ocean below. That was pretty long. This is an insane change, and I'll be the first to admit, I didn't think it would actually happen. Worlds are now 50% taller. They were once 256 blocks, now there's 384, which is pretty massive. Now, it was rumored that the world height would be doubled to 512, but probably that was shortened because of performance issues. But even during the 1.13 and 1.16 updates, the update Aquatic and Nether update respectively, world height was never once changed to improve oceans or the Nether, which just makes this change all the more incredible. Another new cave feature is the addition of aquifers, or flooded caves that generate below the local water level. Aquifers can sometimes be just entirely flooded because the local water level is too high. And aquifers will sometimes generate with these magma blocks in them, providing some light and some air. These magma blocks will always spawn in small patches. Aquifers, of course, connect to regular caves, which are above, and sometimes they'll spill out to the side a little. Because of how massive these new caves are, the barrier between a regular cave and an aquifer can sometimes just be only a few blocks thick, like in this case. Local water levels can also transition from a relatively high point to a relatively low point very quickly, like this instance, where there's a very large drop between that local water level and this cave down here. And not all caves have a local water level. Some will just generate all the way down to bedrock without any water at all. These new caves can provide for some amazing views, and they can have enormous water and lava falls in them. We can also better see the patches of glow lichen that generate in these new caves, because in a single cave, tons of patches of glow lichen will generate. Abandoned mineshafts have also been slightly tweaked in the snapshot to better fit with the new, huge noise cave. Sections of mineshaft that would generate completely out in the air just don't generate anymore, and sections of the mineshaft that end in the air generate with these wood support beams. These support beams can also be quite lengthy too, like these that generate down very far. And one thing to note is that these support beams aren't made of logs, but rather they're actually made of wood blocks, which is just pretty interesting. Other structures can also generate deeper with these new Y levels, and that even includes stronghold. So sorry for you speedrunners out there, you might have to dig down deeper. One really cool thing I found about these new caves is that for the first time ever, you'll be able to easily discover fossils in your world, like these two structures here. Just remember, fossils only ever generate under swamp and desert biomes, but before, they were almost completely surrounded in blocks every time they generate. But with these new large caves, fossils can actually now be exposed more easily. These new caves still have a number of changes left to be made. For instance, lava no longer generates at the bottom of the world. Whether the lava will now generate using local lava levels or all at one Y level remains to be seen. New cave types could also be added, and most importantly, ore distribution is absolutely skewed because of this new 64 levels underground. How the developers intend to address this issue is another question entirely. They can make certain ores, like diamonds, generate at lower Y values, perhaps even in the negatives, or maybe perhaps they could increase the rarity of diamonds and other ores, or maybe they could just make some ores generate in veins, like they're planning on doing with copper. And one notable missing feature is that there's no cave biomes yet, though we can get a preview of the dripstone biome using the single biome world type. This is what the dripstone caves currently look like in the single biome world type. This is a pretty amazing scene with large stalactites, stalagmites, and the many pointed dripstone sticking down from the ceiling and on the floor. I have no doubt that this biome will be just as amazing when added into normal worlds, but for now, we can only appreciate this biome in the single biome world type. Also, it even generates underwater and aquifers. For amazing as the snapshot is, it does have some downsides. Currently, you cannot upgrade existing worlds into this, probably because of the 64 block difference at the bottom of the world. How the developers plan to solve this issue is another question, but they have stated that by the time of the final release of this update, this will be resolved. So, whether we get an extra 64 blocks of cave under the world we currently have, or there's just void there, is unknown. But don't worry, you probably will get the deeper underground in new chunks that generate. Now these caves aren't finished yet and do have some bugs. Like, for instance, there's this massive amethyst geode that's just floating in the middle of a cave for no reason. The only thing it's attached to is this one column here. As you can see, it's a properly generating amethyst geode. Nothing weird about it, besides the fact that it just generated in the middle of the air. Another issue I've discovered is that dungeons don't seem to be spawning as frequently, or rather, they basically don't spawn at all. In all of my time exploring these caves, I've only managed to find a single dungeon, and if we take into account the world height changes, and the fact that there's twice as much space underground for caves to generate, there should be twice as many dungeons. Not practically none. Yet another problem present is that when these new caves intersect with the overworld, they make extremely large cave openings in the world. This is pretty insane. It's larger than most ravines. And yeah, that's definitely not supposed to be how they generate. This is most notably present in mountains, where the new large cave generation completely destroys them. Now this thankfully probably won't be too much of an issue by the time the update's fully released, because these mountains will be replaced with new ones. But just look at the devastation caused by the new noise caves. But the place that's taken the biggest hit this snapshot is the ocean. For one, there's no longer any underwater ravines or underwater caves. Those were replaced with the aquifers. And for another, for some weird reason, this is definitely a glitch by the way, oceans are treated like caves. They no longer have sand or gravel at the bottom of them, and the magma block patches that spawn in aquifers generate in them. This definitely is not supposed to happen. The last thing I wanted to talk about in this video is mob spawning. Yes, current mob farms will likely become less efficient due to the extra 64 blocks down that the world now has, because the spawning algorithm works from the lowest block to the highest block, and since the lowest block is now 64 blocks farther down, the algorithm will work slower. Now, you can of course combat this issue yourself by digging an extra 64 blocks down and making your mob farm even deeper in the world. This won't work for some farms, like witch farms, which will just basically have the rates cut by a significant amount. The developers, of course, could try to change the mob spawning algorithm, but what happens next waits to be seen. With the new world generation changes that have been made in this snapshot, this update has become very interesting, and I'm very much looking forward to what the next couple of snapshots have in store. But for now, that's all I've got. So, thank you all so much for watching. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. If you like this video, make sure to check out some of my other videos, including my two previous, which were both snapshot reviews. Also, make sure to come back next time for my next video. Once again, thank you all so much for watching, and goodbye. What happened here? The Minecraft world generation is rebelling. What even is this?